In a previous video, we initialized our Git repository and we added all of the files on our site to it. We did so by first going to the command line and navigating to the directory where our website is, the root directory. Then we used a command called git init, and this was short for initialize, and that allowed us to create a Git repository. But it doesn't add everything to it automatically, so we had to use a command called git add, and then we used a dot to indicate all of the files that were in the directory. Finally, we committed our changes by using git commit, and then we passed a message parameter with -m, and we passed it the message first commit. When we did this, it added a directory to our website called .git, and this is a hidden folder that contains all of the metadata and code change information, any information about revisions or branches. Everything is contained within this folder. So if we deleted it, our Git repository would no longer exist. So what we're going to do from here is begin making changes to our repository. Now, we did an initial commit, which added all of the files on our Drupal site, but now we're going to go through the process of modifying our code and making commits every time we make a modification. Now, while it's important to know how to commit changes to your repository, it's equally as important, if not more important, to know how to roll things back. So what we're going to do initially is practice making changes to the repository and then rolling them back in different ways, depending on what kind of changes you want to make. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump to the resource pack directory that I've downloaded from buildamodule.com, and I'm going to expand the coders folder. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the input folder, which is just a module. And then I'm going to go to my Git site, and I'm going to go to Sites, All, Modules, and I'm going to paste in the module there. Okay, so now we have our one input module. Now if we go back to the command line, there are changes now to our repository. So after we make sure that we're in our repository folder, let's go ahead and type git status to get a sense of what it is that's changed inside of our directory. Now let's also take a moment to explore what this outputs. So this first line says on branch master, and what this means is that we're on a branch called master, and later on in the series as we begin working with other branches, this will say on branch and then the name of the branch we're on. But master is the branch that's created automatically when we initialize our Git repository. This next line says untracked files. And if we read down, it says use git add file to include in what will be committed. So this line is actually pretty helpful. It tells us what a logical next step would be. So we can use this at various points in our workflow to get a sense of what we might want to do next. Next, we have a folder here, Sites All Modules Input, and it doesn't list all of the individual files because none of the files are under version control. And it lists these under untracked files, and you see that they're red. And then the output summarizes by saying nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Use git add to track. So again, we get some helpful information on what to do next. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at what's inside of this folder, and we can do so using the ls command. So I'm going to do ls, and then I'm using autocomplete in order to quickly type sites all modules input. I'm going to hit enter. And you see we have 3 files and a folder. Now before we added a whole slew of files in our commit, let's go ahead and look at how to add one. I'm going to go ahead and use the git add command, and I'm going to type in the name of a particular file. So sites all modules input, and then let's do input.module. Okay, so now if we use git status again, we see that we have some extra information here. We have on branch master, that's the same, and then we have a changes to be committed section. And you see our new file listed here. And our helpful text says use git reset head, name a file, to unstage. Now this introduces a concept of staging here. The way the process works when we commit to a Git repository is we go through 2 steps. First of all, we tell Git what we want to add or update on our next commit. And we do this usually by using git add in order to specify the files that we want to add. So it's not just for new files, but it's for updated files as well. When we use git add, it puts those files in a staging area. And so when we make our next commit, those changes will get committed. And so if we want to unstage, as it says here, we can use git reset head and then the name of the file. Let's actually go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to do git reset head, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy this sites all modules input.module and paste it in and hit enter. We don't get any feedback, but if we use git status again, we see that now all of our files that are in the input folder are now untracked again. Now above here, when we did git status after adding our file, you notice that we have a few listed under untracked files, whereas before we just had our folder. This is because the folder now contains some files that are tracked and some files that aren't. So it specifies the specific files that aren't tracked. I'm going to go ahead and clear the back scroll by using Control K. So just a quick summary, you just saw how we could add a file to the staging area and then remove it from the staging area, basically leaving no record that anything happened in our repository. A common use case for this is when you add, say, a whole folder of files and then you realize that there are a couple of files that you didn't actually want to add, so you can remove those from the staging area before you actually make the commit.